So I will, I don't have too much today. I think I'm going to use this venue, following the city council meeting on, or the special one earlier on the courthouse relocation. Once we're final, and we're still talking with the state, they have the bond council deadline next week. They're still very much on board with moving forward with the property and finalizing the details, but I've committed to quarterly finance reports on this piece. I'll probably align them with Big Finance Friday. So the first one will probably be in April, and but even beyond that, as you know, Steve, if I've got any questions, I'll give you all progress updates, where we're going with things, progress of funding, of grants we're reaching out to, of impact fee development, of every step of the way. So it's a big project for the city, and I want to keep this committee especially up to date. And it's sort of in line with a lot of our financing pieces, not just for this road and how we're going to sort of actively monitor the finances of the project, which in years past is kind of just, all right, let's get this done, and we'll kind of see from a high level in the budget, but project to project infrastructure as well, with the road ban and bond funding for the road paving. We're going to more of a system in our internal areas where you can just track each project that we're doing and have those funds get encumbered over. Something that's been missing for many years here, and we're going to have a little bit more of a dialed-in system for infrastructure planning, so that it's and not just our projects too. The state's doing a lot next year. We've got the High Street, Surrey Road. I think there's some on Maine that also might be going on, but just to give a better, broader picture of all the infrastructure pieces that are going on. There'll be timing, there'll be when things will be shut down. I know High Street's supposed to be a nighttime only project, especially in spring and early summer around here, but we want to make sure everybody has as much information and can kind of understand what's going on with that. So,
To speak to that a little bit, I realize that the council voted 6-1 to push forward with this and authorize you to do it, and I was not for the city paying for it, but my simple request is that the majority of the council voted for it, so it's the law. It needs to happen.
yep.
Doesn't mean that I wouldn't say this, that we have a road system in Ellsworth that has been not maintained, and now we're building a new road. And if we're not maintaining the roads that we have, that's problematic, but the council has spoke to that, and I respect that wholeheartedly. A 6-1 vote to build a new road, okay? My simple request would be this: they didn't clearly say in that vote how to build that road. And before we commit our Public Works Department to building that road, I would think that we might look at an outside contractor to compare costs.
Yep.
I'm not saying change it, I'm saying that you've got a department that's probably got their plate full as it is. And I would think that looking to an outside contractor, once the plans are done, doesn't cost anything. And it might be a balance of looking at that to see, okay, our crew's gonna do this, there's opportunity costs to that. What are those expenses to that opportunity cost? What would they be doing? What would they not be doing? And I would think if they're gonna have a set of plans to work with, that it wouldn't hurt to have some pricing from outside people, because you can't beat a guy at its own game.
Yep.
And I don't think it costs the city anything to simply request that with a few contractors to see what it would be.
Yep.
And obviously, I'm not trying to change the decision, I'm just, maybe the decision's been made, but perhaps we ought to look at all opportunities or all methods of doing it.
Yeah, I think there's, agreed, and I think maybe we need to I hate to do a workshop, but maybe an update at some point from our teams on, a lot of the folks that we have within our highway department that, they've been in the road building business for the majority of their careers. So they have a lot of expertise in here. This team does as well. But to your point, Stephen, the financing, should it should the full liability be realized if the 1.5 was the expectation of private contracting? And to your point on getting a guidepost for that, I definitely want to consider that. There is another piece we've talked about. The highway department is especially with the 2 million in road funding. We've been doing a lot of crack sealing, a lot of ditching. We're trying to figure out a little more how to do kind of higher value projects. Of course, we're always going to have crack sealing, ditching, water main replacements, et cetera. But then also, what are like the high value projects, like a water main replacement, like big culverts in areas that we keep doing this minor repairs to, and we need to do a much more. So we're trying to layer in some of those bigger projects that as we've talked about, we'll probably never do as efficiently as the private sector, but that could be that. And the road, because we have a lot of expertise here, we wouldn't have to flag it, and it's in an area that's not highly trafficked. When we're not doing our other pieces, we'd be on the road. And also, just to clarify, that with the Public Works team, it's about things we can do with hours we already have and expertise we already have to reduce the funding of the road, not to do it entirely ourselves. So there's a fair amount on that road that's going to have to be privately contracted out for. But to your very good point, Steve, I also think the consideration should also be, especially if we can fund it, it's the other piece, just
Look at all options.
do the whole private sector. Let's get out of that game entirely. And to your point, there's an opportunity cost. In a city of this size with as many roads, the Public Works team's backlog of things they have to do will always be more than they have time to do every day. So,
One further question about that. The state, could you update this committee on the conversations with the state after Tuesday nights? Are they more? Are they still have to go through their process to approve this? So on their end, where are they at? Is there one person agreeing, or is there a panel that's voted for this? How does that work?
yeah, so there's two state conversations I'm having right now. One's the state judiciary, and yeah, we've had probably 3 follow-up meetings. So they're sort of on the road contract timelines, expectations for when it would have to, the construction road piece, which that one's super easy, off long lane, straight in. We could have that in a month. But it's really the other piece on when they're going to need that, what their project timelines are going to be, what that deliverable would have to be. And then we're doing the finalization of the Wardwell land swap contract. So we're hoping everybody's supposed to have their kind of final drafts done by Monday. In an ideal world, those get done Monday, and then bond counsel for, it's wildly complicated, but it's the York Judicial Center bond that closes in 5 years on the 15th. Part of the reason for them, what we talked about, that 15th deadline, which is what the Surrey Road property was bought under. So there's basically like a swap that has to happen within those timeframes. With the road contract plus the land swap defined to the state's needs, which we're already there. We've done the surveying, all these other pieces. Ideally, that'll happen, be finalized on Monday, and then Wednesday the bond council moves forward, and that's sort of the stage of that judiciary side of things. And then we'll go more to project management. There's the DEP conversation with the state DEP. Okay, here's the project plans. We talked about the vernal pools last time around. We'll look to the second stage is going to be some of the land easement purchase agreements, which we have kind of, verbal agreements in principle on what that would be. But if the vernal pools aren't significant, we might want to make the road straighter. So that'll be kind of a final spring. Plus, would the state consider this a joint project for the courthouse as a slowdown, which is it's kind of, again, we've designed the original road planning so that even if all of the DP threw the book at us for the vernal pools and they are significant, that this goes in there. Or would they consider it what they call a NERPA, as 2 separate projects, which would be just a quicker turnaround on the state's DEP's permitting process. So that's kind of the next big hurdle in terms of, okay, now the state DEP is approved, this is the final road layout, easements are purchased for this type of road. The state's courthouse project is totally separate. The city's on their own track here with obviously the conditions to meet the state's deadlines. But the plan is to go beyond a parking area for the rail trail, or do they consider it a joint project, which would have some smaller things? So that's state judiciary, state DEP. The state legislature, also working with Senator Grahowski to see if we can get some sort of state bill to help with the road funding. Maybe not all of it, but some mitigation of it.
So in simple terms, Tuesday night, there was a 6-1 approval. Everyone's excited about that on the council. I respect that wholeheartedly. I guess in a simple matter, is the state equally excited, or are we having to pull them
Oh, no.
along?
100%, 1,000%.
Okay, that's what I'm
In simple
trying to
terms,
figure
yeah,
out.
they're very excited. I think, as always, we want to see all the contracts and everything out before, and I can imagine at some point in the near future, and there's always things, even whether it's the Surrey Road, whether it's this project, DEP, our own planning board, this is not, this is committed, it's 1,000%, but I think in the next, we want to get to the stage where we're doing some sort of press release and an excitement from the state and the city that we're moving forward.
So they're equally excited as our town.
Totally.
Great,
Totally.
that's all I needed.
Great.
Thank you.
And I'm excited too. I know, it's a big project, but I think it's, as we talked about the last time, I think there's a lot of benefits to the city in the future and but a lot of work to be done too, so.
Thank you.
Sure. That's it. We have our, I'll send it over to Nate to maybe talk a little bit about the top line budgeting here.
Sure. So, I also printed some copies if anyone wants to grab any, but we have the, the budget versus actual for the fiscal year through December, so through the end of the calendar year, which marks the halfway point of the fiscal year, that's 6 months in. If you look at the right side column, and not all of them have it, just so you guys know, so if you look at yours and it doesn't have a percentage, it's because it cut off in the printer, so my apologies. But on the right column, it gives you the percentage of where we're at, based on the fiscal year. Like I said, that's why it says FY 50%, or 50% through the fiscal year. And just so everyone's aware, this is available on the city's website. I think Maura, who does a great job at updating the website, has it up there as of yesterday. So anyone online watching this can log on and see that. But I feel like this gives a good representation of where we're at. Also, just so you guys are aware, I'm not sure if it was mentioned while I was out, but we are reconciled through FY '24, and everything is sent to the audit, so we're good there. We have 4 major accounts.
Really, seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it's
Unbelievable.
it is, it's wonderful.
We have 4 major accounts, and actually, as of yesterday, 2 of those are reconciled as of December, so I still have 2 more to do, but that's my goal, obviously, to get reconciled, and we're still working through it. Auditor has, as of right now, everything they need. I reached out to them earlier this week as far as the FY '24 audit. It sounds like they have everything they need as of now. That may change, we will see. But so far, things are looking good. Just to give you guys just a brief synopsis, I was looking at the accounts, I did this last month, I think, too, just to show you where we're at. I show, as of right now, we're about 5.5 in the bank, 5.5 million in the bank, and that doesn't include the money we got for the loader and the vac truck. I actually took that out because that obviously increased our funds. Just to know, last year at this time, we were at 3.6, so almost 2 million more than we were last year. 23 was just over 4. 22 was 4.5, and 21 was 4.6. So even if you look at the last 4 years comparatively, obviously, we're sitting in a better financial state. So all in all, I feel like everything's good. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, always reach out to the finance department. We'll answer any questions we can. But like I said, this is all found online, or you can grab a copy on the way out. But
I have 2 questions, if I may. One is the city, and maybe the answer's in here, but the city is in a better cash position. How does that compare to our debt from last year? And we borrowed the money is the question.
yeah, I mean, obviously, we have the TAN that we previously got, which was 3 million. We've only pulled 2 million out of that, so we still have 1 million left. Obviously, there's no need for us to have to grab that. I don't see any need for that to get through the fiscal year. I feel like our debt position is just as good as it was last year. So, I mean, comparatively speaking, I wasn't here, but
Well, I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah. So I
My,
feel-
my point, my simple question is, you know, with better cash,
We're-
but we owe more.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that's my simple
Yeah.
question. So, we have a better cash position, but I'm guessing that last year at this time, we didn't have 2 million in borrowed from a credit line from a TAN?
I don't believe we borrowed anything from the TAN last year, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So if you take that 2 million that you've got out now,
Mm-hmm.
and last year we had 3 million,
Yeah.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair to say that the difference has been borrowed? And these are rough terms and questions, but when I see bigger cash balances and then bigger debt, I'm just
No,
asking that
I think
question.
it's a very fair question. I will say, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but near the end of calendar year 2023, we had the 2023 GOB, which influxed our account $3.4 million, and not all that was expended at the time. So that would be reflected in that cash flow. So to say we'd be at the same spot, I don't think it's fair, because not all
I'm
those.
not saying we are, I'm asking.
No, not all those funds were exhausted before January. So like I said, you can say we had $2 million come in from that TAN, but last year they had 3.4 brought in for the GOB. That wasn't all expended, so.
So it's an honest to goodness.
Yeah.
Better spot.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my concern.
I'm just looking at a few numbers. The fire department, looks like they've kind of blown through their overtime on sick, vacation, and training. Is there a reason for?
What page are you on?
It's not
I should have page numbers on the other.
I'm on the fire department page.
Yeah.
And, and I
I
know
am too.
there's always reasons, but I also know this is why, we do this, just to keep an eye on things, and it doesn't give me like heartburn or anything, but if you look at their account numbers, 10, 210,
Yeah.
501, sick, vacation, training, for what we budgeted, they've already exceeded the total yearly budget.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the 5110, the payroll overtime, the fact that that's way under, I don't know if a lot of that was just lumped into there.
Yeah.
And it's been split up between the different.
I should also note there is a significant issue with our paycheck system and how they budget through the things, and they've kind of had to do like a manual process. But I also don't want to promise that that's not
Yeah.
the piece. But I'll definitely follow up with Scott.
That's one of the things, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That's one of the things with the, getting the budgets, which are due by January 31st from the departments. That's one of the things we'll be talking about is, where we're at, why things like that. Like I said, I had to take a deeper dive into that to see, but I feel like a lot of that was honestly put into that just payroll overtime, and it's kind of been.
Just different
Yeah.
situations. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like, all I'm doing is looking at.
Yeah,
I
no,
have the
no.
percent of budget, and so it's easy for me to be
That's
like, oh,
why-
that's a big number.
that's-
What's going on there?
That's why the percent is nice to have
Yeah.
on there, so you can see that.
Yeah,
For sure.
Scott usually watches these things. He's one of the
I would
most.
say-
He's
Yeah.
one of the
No,
most. I can
that's-
actually kind of
yeah.
Yeah,
feel
trust
him.
me, Scott is in my office at least once a week to talk about something.
I mean, I literally had a conversation with them last week on this issue with paychecks and that they're not able to map. But it's a similar thing with police too. On
Yeah,
just they
it's-
have their individual tagging that they want to do, and they do it in their own like kind of accounting software. But then it doesn't map over to paychecks. So I'm wondering if it also doesn't map into Cassell in the right way.
So I have a
because
feeling
of
at the end of the fiscal year, basically to summarize, that I think you're gonna see a lot of that's gonna be like skewed one way, but then this side is, so
Yeah.
hopefully it all balances
Comes
out,
out in the
but,
wash, yeah.
but yeah, we have had some issues with paychecks, only in that aspect. Otherwise, they've been great, but the mapping has been a little off.
Right.
Yeah, the mapping for the public safety teams has been a
Yeah.
little finicky. And to Nate's point, next step for us really is that the January 31st deadline for budgets to be submitted by, and then, and we're building, as I've talked to Nate and Ashley about, getting me the new binder that's to-date actuals
Yep.
across the board, so we can start diving in a little bit more on, okay, that doesn't seem perfectly right, every single tiny light item. Not that Nate and Ashley aren't looking at that, but we'll have a better perspective about 7 months in. so we can, especially with the reconcile to date, there's also the reserve account funding that we talked about last time that, we might want to take another look at, and then back into budget season, which I'm super excited about this time. I feel like I'll actually have the tools and resources to do it even better. I think we got to a good place last time around, with the technology transfer and those other pieces. Not to future cast too much, but I'm really looking forward to 2026 this time around, because then we'll have a full year within the budget system, plus a
Yeah.
full 8 months in another year-to-date actuals to really kind of monitor this, so, yep.
To speak to that, last week, there was some questions from the school department about, they could be ready by April, and I was pretty vocal about, it seems that the school's always ahead of the municipal side, and there was a lot of questions about, could the municipal side be ready in tune with the school side? And I wanted to get your feelings on that, because since I've been here, the school's always ahead of us, and we're always backpedaling. And I know you've made huge improvements, but I guess the question from the school last week was, are we in line with them or not? Can we be ready by April? And that was a question that come from them last week.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I don't know if Michelle had a better. I watched the finance committee meeting on from Friday and saw that conversation. There was a piece of me that's like, we're ready. I think 30% of departments are in already. We'll be at 100%, or there'll be consequences in the end of the month. So I was like, could we flip it? Can we go first? And then, and then you all are on the other side. But I think, Michelle, that's traditionally the schools there. Plus, having a little more time in the budget cycle, we could have started budgeting last month here. I think being a little further in the season, especially seeing better actuals.
It's not tradition, it's all because of the election. It didn't used to be that way, the whole thing was always done in June, both sides.
Both sides we've gone.
Michelle, can you please
Ma'am,
approach
can you
the
get a mic, please?
microphone?
Say your name.
Sorry.
Say your name.
Congratulations.
Microphone.
You could also come sit with us if you'd like.
I'm not on the committee anymore.
That's true.
Yeah,
Stay
just
over
stay there and speak your name.
Michelle Beal, City Council. No, it's not tradition, it's driven because of the vote, of the election.
Okay.
And so that all came about once the whole RSU thing came about, and then people were allowed to vote for the school budget. It used to be that the school would present, I don't know, sometime in May, we would be caught up, and then we would be looking at the budget as a whole instead of piecemeal. But the election has driven that change. So, yeah, so the choice is either, we don't, the people choose not to vote on the school budget, or the city starts a lot earlier to do their budget, so our budget is actually done in April. So it really should be both of us at the same time, because it's exactly what we're doing. It's horrible, because the school has their budget, and we are approving a budget that we have no idea what the effect is going to be on taxation, because we're not done with ours.
Yeah, and then
So I would be all in favor of doing that.
Yeah,
I
it's,
can
yeah, and then it kind of, I know we felt that pressure last time around. It's like when we're doing cut exercises at the end to try and, like, there's only one half that we're doing the cut on, as opposed to saying, okay, this is it. We would only want the mill to be here. City, you need to figure out, another 300 grand, and school, you need to figure out another 300 grand. Like, you're only able to do the one side once the other one's passed. And I hate being so early, but if we got it, I think originally we were thinking about this in terms of, giving the city council space, the school goes forward, but maybe we need to just pull up our timelines, and it's not ideal to finish it in April, but so that the city side is finished in April too, so that, and honestly, it might just give more space
Yeah.
coming into July and those things, so we can, know what our budget is earlier, know what we're going to next time, and,
Yeah.
even though we don't have to do the commit, and if there's some big thing that comes up that we feel like we need to, I don't know, we could do kind of a pre-sup budget, or I don't know how that would work on the city side, but,
I mean, it would be good too, because we could also spend, if we were all completely done by April, we could spend May and June finishing up the finances, encumbering, figuring out what we didn't get done, what's gonna be brought forward into the
Right.
next fiscal
That'd
year.
be
You would
ideal.
have, finance would have a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
time to be able to do that.
To kind of do their finalization. I like that. Let me talk to the team.
Ma'am, your time's up.
Yeah. And
I've always wanted to do that.
And
You were asking me questions, I was making 3 minutes of statement.
to speak to that a little further, if they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last year, it was a mess, and you inherited a mess, and you inherited a mess, and there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes to try and fix some of that, and, you know, this right here is a great tool that we've never had
Yeah.
until you. But if the school budget can do it, we can do it, and we ought to do it.
Yeah, and
And we're gonna do it.
And like, you know, I can tell Nate right now, just, hey, can you print out today?
Yeah.
It's already built in the software. It'll populate. We can get, you know, basically a zeroed out budget for next year based on, and then see the actuals for the previous year in each department line item and start going through that. Like, I could do that in 2 days. Not that I'm going to, but, plus, I think, you know, now that we're, you know, I'm thinking in 2025, and I'm looking to February, we'll do kind of a strategic planning exercise with the council to kind of set ourselves up for the year. I know that's what Sue in Bucksport and other cities and towns she's managed. She likes to do that, but getting more to the blocking and tackling in this budget piece, this is our foundational policy document for the year, and, you know, that's getting it through April, and, you know, being really locked and set with that, and if there are, you know, and for the county and or for the community as well, to kind of know. I've heard, I heard a rumor recently that, that we're you know, the city is already committed to a 20% increase in taxes this year, and like, we've talked about that, and it's like, that's not, I have no interest in that. I know as I've talked to you about, we're gonna have each department, they're gonna have what they think they need for next year, based on last year, but then also if they were forced to do a 10% cut exercise, a separate budgeting line item to sort of be able to see what that would be, so we can see where any potential cuts, that there could be service problems with that. We might not want to do that, but I am laser focused on getting things down. Last year was a big stabilization year. You know, especially based on the last city forum, the city council forum. You know, whether it's the two that were elected here, or even those that weren't elected. A lot of talk about parks and recreation. You know, if we were going to consider additional staff requests, right now it's my only one, would potentially be in the Parks and Rec coordinator side of things. But I don't, you know, we'll wait until the budget process completes with staff moving forward, but I don't have any additional staff requests. I think we're in a pretty good shape for staffing right now. You know, we're really laser focused on, you know, the citizens here have had a couple tough years of tax increases, and we want to make sure we're living within our means, and really taking a little zoom out too. I know, you know, some of the macroeconomic growth trends in the city on new business growth. I think in a lot of ways, you know, we saw a fair amount of that last year. Some of these much bigger projects, over $100 million through the planning board, and you know, these are big, you know, new business, new growth, that could be additional tax revenues that, you know, if we continue to see this type of growth, that's what's really going to help, you know, the current taxpayers kind of cover the inflationary, you know, the general increases in government without having to have these big mill rate increases. So really focused on that, and happy to move it forward to, you know, I think everybody will feel more calm about what's going to go on next year for earlier in the season too. So I love that idea, Steve.
Could I ask one question of you, Nate?
Yes.
About this handout, the first page and the revenues receivable. Says tax receivable, property tax, personal property tax receivables. Help me understand where it says receivables, and I realize this is government accounting, not private accounting, but help me understand, is that truly a receivable, or is that what you have collected? And if so, the receivables, what's the aging of this?
Well, this is like, if you look at the 26.2 and the 597, that's this year's current amount that we should receive for taxes. So the 13.8 and the 396, that's what we've received as of this date,
Okay,
only on 2025. So obviously, we might be getting stuff from 2024, that's not showing on here. Obviously, some people are paying 2026 already, that's not on here. This is just 2025 solely.
okay. So the difference column, is there a concern about this difference in the personal property tax? And receivables, and the aging is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. Is there an aging issue with receivables with the city that we need to be concerned about?
I don't know if you want to talk about that, Sue. Oh, or-
It's because we haven't had the March payment yet.
I was gonna say, like, we haven't.
That's what we hopefully will get when people pay their March payment.
So ideally, we
Right.
want to be 50% or more. I mean,
It's like the two tranches.
I just got an email from my bank saying they're gonna pay my second payment for my mortgage, so. it's
we
com-
appreciate that.
That's
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank
So
you.
the 66% should be closer to 50.
Yeah. It's
Correct?
just Some people obviously might have paid in full at the beginning of the year instead of paying it into it.
Okay, so that's why I was asking the aging story. Is, in other words, and if you could speak to that, I'm asking, in private enterprise, you have an aging sheet that's overdue by a certain amount of days. And I'm wondering where the city stands with that.
Ma'am, if you could step up to the mic. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Sue McLean, tax collector. I guess I'm not really sure what you're asking. You want to know?
How much of, what does your aging sheet look like? In other words, what are the amounts that are past due?
Well, they're getting smaller and smaller all the time because I'm really working on them. I've reached out to quite a few. I couldn't give you any amounts right now. I can get that information.
Maybe next week?
Yeah.
Get
Oh,
that info?
absolutely. I
Yeah,
can have that
yeah,
for
I'd
you
just
for
like to
next
know
week.
the aging and
Yep.
I think that'd be
is there a collection? I mean, that's.
Well, we had a collection process. We're kind of trying to streamline it a little bit. And I found that reaching out to people directly, I'm getting a really good response from a lot of people. And if I can't reach them one-on-one, send a letter, and 9 times out of 10, I'll get a call, and people will make an arrangement to make payments. So we're whittling it down. I'm really looking at that and spending quite a bit of time on it to get it all taken care of. So next week I can get you all that
Yeah,
information.
that would just be great. I just
Yep.
wondered, I don't want to be working with numbers that aren't good collection numbers. That's my point.
I guess, Sue, follow-up question to Steve's, is there any difference in years prior that gives you concern, or it kind of, in your experience, as far as tax receipts come
I
in?
think we're on a better track.
Okay.
I think
great.
we're getting, the biggest issues that I'm seeing right now are businesses that are no longer here. And just, they will argue the point that they're not in business anymore, they're not gonna pay. And that's where we're at, even though the billing is from when they were here, that's my hard area. But even some of them are coming forward after hearing from me and making payments, so. But as far as more current, now, people they don't like it, but they're doing it, they're paying it. I think from when I started this to now, I think we're in a much better place, much better communication, and people are receptive to what I'm asking, so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I think that'd be a great, maybe next Friday, conversation, Sue, on just what we can, I know you have those numbers on what the total outstanding, those in lien, et cetera, and can even talk about the process a little more, just to give you all, what
Thank you.
happens.
Good information.
Can I ask a question? So Nate, this 2025 taxes receivable is what we sent out in bills for the fiscal
Yes,
2025. What you're talking about are past due personal property from prior years to that, which isn't shown on here.
I'm not talking about 25.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
24.
Right. because we're kind of not.
24 and before.
We're not in a position to
We
have
haven't
past
hit
due.
the second half yet.
Right, because some people can pay their tax with interest in March. We allow 2 payments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, yeah. It's not all due in September.
Okay,
So
so yeah,
the-
you're not out looking for people on this current year?
Not
just
yet.
Because they have the time to do it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Because they have until March.
Thank you for clarifying that, Michelle.
But we still have overdue bills that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2024.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see what we're dealing with.
Oh, yeah, no, I just,
Prior.
Yeah.
In '25, we should have those that didn't hit by the deadline in the first tranche, right? There should be
Yeah, I
a
mean,
certain,
I can get that.
a certain, maybe we'll have a certain subset of the fall folks that didn't. And then there's a separate category, maybe it'd be great to get an update on too, relative to the senior citizens that we,
Working with?
yeah, and I don't think there was a huge uptake on that, but it'd be nice to just kind
It's
of,
set up there. Another great thing to look at in prior years is the percentage of what we do collect in taxes before liens.
Yeah,
That's always interesting to see where that goes up and down every year.
Okay.
And then before liens and then after liens. And then we know how many people are going to lien
yeah.
and then how many end up going to foreclosure before we, should be a small number, but that's an interesting one to also get if we can.
Okay.
great. Love it. I love a presentation for Finance Friday. I think that's pretty much it for me. Yeah, I did want to just note, kind of apologize. I wasn't here last Friday. I did watch the meeting. It was a tough one to watch. I feel like some of this was, we kind of, Tina and Amy came to talk about setting the school budget deadline. And we wanted to have kind of a full conversation with council at the January meeting on a potential is the word here, school consolidation for ward election voting. And, I felt watching the meeting that it really kind of went far afield with just 2 counselors here. And there was, I know a lot of folks that watched it too reported back. It felt like we were kind of not our best with the people that were presenting. And there is no intention of that effort to, limit people's right to vote. There's just a lot of issues with having that here at City Hall that, we're still ironing out, that, create a lot of complications and create expense. And, I really want to make sure that we, when folks kind of come forward with one of these presentations, that we give them the benefit of the doubt that they have the city best interest in mind. And, I'm a little disappointed that we weren't able to talk. Now that's off the agenda. I think it was a pretty tough meeting that, we still need to consider a consolidation, not a consolidation, maybe a relocation out of here. I know that there was some back and forth on that, but, yeah, I really, that was a tough one to watch. It really was.
But it was an honest one.
Yeah, so we're going to continue to talk about it because it's important, and it was something that the last Heidi, when was city clerk, was really thinking about, and it's super important. So it was sort of forestalled. We're kind of committed now because we didn't get to have a public hearing and consider it in full at the January council meeting. But we might be able to still do a relocation, not a consolidation, because of the way the state law is considered for elections. So if we relocate 2 wards as opposed to consolidating all wards is off the table now. But well, for this year, which would have been a good year because it's not a heavy election vote year. But at the same time, we might consider a relocation of the 2 wards for operational efficiencies in this year. And I'll try to do better about a more long-term process that, that we could have more council participation on, especially with such a, obviously a lot of opinions on, but our staff who came for that, they've done an incredible amount of work, a lot of which, won't even be able to see by the full council. So
Why can't it go before the council?
the public hearing piece is passed now. So there needed to be a public hearing to discuss the consolidation. We could still discuss relocation, and I think the relocation of the 2 wards in the near term might be, where we end up. I know, Steve, you had mentioned that you saw the need for better operational efficiency here, and there were some good points that were made, both by you and others. It's just the tone of the conversation, and I know I felt on it that it seemed as though, like, city staff were trying to, or the impression that I got watching, I know the impression from a lot of people who watched it and the staff themselves was that they were trying to make this harder for people to vote. And that it was the exact opposite, which was make it easier for people to vote, make it more secure for people to vote, and knowing that any kind of change like that has complications and needs to be talked about. But, just like the courthouse project, just like a lot of other things, I do think we can have really tough conversations about that without kind of the motivations of people's intent kind of being there. And Woodlawn too, Woodlawn is a great organization. I felt that they were, somewhat put apart for, their request for funding for using their space for 3 days. Talking about them being in the sticks, these other types of things, like, these are, when we have these conversations, our staff put a ton of effort into them, and I want to make sure that they are treated with kindness and respect.
To speak to that, and then I'll leave it alone. Perhaps if, as a counselor, we had some previous notice, like maybe an agenda, that this was coming forward, that would have been handy, than to get hit with a 5-year contract up front, that we had no knowledge of, I had no knowledge of. It was, craziness, in my opinion, that we didn't have any forewarning of that. And we had a 5-year contract in front of us. And that's what I was told, okay? So, and I'll leave it alone after that, but if perhaps you don't want positive, or you don't want feedback, perhaps an agenda for this meeting might be handy.
Yeah, I should note that the topic at hand for them was just a notification of setting the meeting, the calendar time, and that we were going to be coming on the agenda for the January meeting. That's where I was saying things kind of got far afield, and I apologize for not being here to really kind of reset on that so we could consider it as a full council. It wasn't to approve a contract. I think Tina had done a lot of work that she was prepping for the January meeting on, so she had contracts, she had these other things available for discussion, but it became a meeting about approving that piece. But at the same time, if one counselor is opposed, you can't move forward on it anyways. So it seemed pretty much,
Yeah, well, I'm the guy that was opposed, and the girl with me was,
so that's
Danny
why,
was too.
that's why a little bit of a, I did want Tina, and again, this was my fault, to your very good point there, Steve, on an agenda for this meeting or that type of thing. I was out on vacation that day, although I did a lot of work. But knowing that I wanted Tina just to kind of mention it, that we would be coming to council, and there's the other things, so that you all could, maybe provide some context before we got to a much more robust discussion. But it felt like it got pretty far afield in that meeting.
True, however, again, it's no reason that it can't come forward for another year in another place. And just because I felt it was rushed and sprung on us, that's an honest feeling, and that doesn't mean that it can't come in a different timetable to make a better decision. That's my view, is that why is this such a pressing thing? It's been this way for a long time. Let's focus on another year's election and consolidating it and listen to the whole thing. That's my point, is I don't think it was needed to be on the January agenda. Put it on an April agenda for next year, or what have you. That next year, there's nothing wrong with making a reasonable decision and talking it over and not being pushed into January. That was just our feeling.
So if I may, so the purpose of the Finance Committee, one of the big purposes of the Finance Committee has always been that staff and others can bring ideas to this committee, have good discussions, and find out what is needed. Should this go to the January meeting? Should this do these things? And not, and this is what happened a few years back, it should be a good discussion. So if a person comes with an idea and there's a feeling that there hasn't been enough information, that it needs to wait until another time, then that discussion is had and asked to wait, or say, you know, if this goes to council, this is to help staff. So, and to bring ideas, and to be open in discussion and respectful to the staff and to other people from the community that come here. It's not to get upset because something hasn't happened, because this isn't information. We don't make decisions in Finance Committee. We provide information, we listen, we give ideas, and we help before it comes to the council to ensure that the council meetings are respectful and people have enough information. So I would respectfully ask that if this committee, and I'm feeling bad that I'm not on the committee right now, if this committee be respectful and give those ideas and tell someone, you know, I know you've put a lot of work into this, but I don't think this is ready. Maybe this isn't a good idea for this year, but let's talk about next year. Let's make it an idea and an open forum for discussion, and not a mad at someone because you didn't know about this ahead of time. That's not the purpose of this. And also, yeah, there should be an agenda, and I'm not sure what's going on with that, but there's always pop-ins at finance for things that come up, and it gives a public forum for people to say, hey, this is a thought that I have, or hey, we're working on this and it's not going the way it is, and I might need to go to the council for something. What are your thoughts on that financially? So just asking for respect.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the points were actually valid, and it's a lot of the points Tina, she's talked to elected officials, she's talked to, staff, she's talked to community members, volunteers, others, and, to your point, that form itself wasn't like, let's invalidate this, and there was a lot of, I felt, discussion that went kind of beyond the, hey, like, I'm curious, like, have you thought about this, and have you thought about that, and okay, you have thought about something. It felt like the intent behind this was to limit votes, that it's too rushed, that we're voting on it today, that why did this come forward, and all those things really, I would have loved to have discussed in full council. And again, that's on me too. I wasn't here to kind of adequately prepare you all that this is just a general discussion in the agenda piece as well, and making sure you're all a little more informed. But, and some of the discussion of Woodlawn and what their motives were, and I felt like, that we weren't at our best on that one.
It's a lot like this discussion.
Okay.
Wait, this is not a good discussion, Steve?
Look, I think last time was a good discussion, and I think this time is a good discussion. But this discussion is all about two people that were here and gave feedback. The people that are complaining wasn't here.
Oh, I'm the one complaining. Again, you can never get something from a video, for sure. I know. We've had some robust ones in here, and I felt that at least over my tenure, they've been excellent. This last one was one that I felt was not, so.
Too bad that you don't agree, but that's fine. I gave my opinion.
Awesome. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.